A jump is a prolonged form of suspension that occurs from the stance phase of the hind limbs at takeoff to the forelimb stance phase at touchdown. A successful jump requires the horse to raise its centre of gravity to a sufficient height over the fence. In the final strides before takeoff, the neck is lifted higher, shifting the weight and kinetic energy into the hind quarters. When jumping a wide water jump, the horse's neck stays extended forwards as the horse needs horizontal impulsion and not as much vertical. Horses show a variety in jumping technique. Many of these differing techniques can be equally as successful. An elongated stance phase of the hind limbs allow the energy to be stored within the tendons and ligaments in the hind limbs. Researchers have found that the fetlock angle when flexed in galloping thoroughbreds is between 97 and 107 degrees. Therefore, this is within that limit. The scapula rotates backwards as the forelimbs lift upwards to clear the fence. Unlike this horse, the forelimbs should be tight against the body to make a streamlined jump. This horse has a much better forelimb technique, as the neck extends forwards to propel the horse over the jump. This horse has an almost perfect, very neat front end over the fence. The elbows are extremely flexed and the forelimbs tight against the body. The spinal cord flexes as the back curves during the bascule over the fence. At landing, the horse inverts the spine and lumbosacral joint, aiding the lift of the hindquarters and stifles over the fence. The horse may kick out his hind limbs to create an additional kinetic energy and propulsion over the fence. The head and neck are brought upwards in an attempt to shift the weight backwards and slow the forward momentum and rotation of the jump. The fetlock joint drops, absorbing the landing force as the hindquarters are brought down underneath the trunk, ready for propulsion of the move off stride. At this point, the fetlock angle is its most acute. This particular horse has a landing angle of the trailing forelimb of 91.4 degrees. The shortening of the final approach stride is important as it allows the body to gain energy. The final approach stride of this horse is 2.23 metres. This makes sure that the horse takes off at 1.68 metres from the start of the jump. The horse clears this 1 metre oxa with ease. This horse's approach stride was 2.22 metres, landing him 0.69 metres from the beginning of the fence. This was clearly too close as the horse then knocked the fence. The horse did not have enough room to lift its shoulders and forelimbs over the fence. This horse has a slightly longer approach stride at 2.39 metres, but landed 1.58 metres from the beginning of the fence. This horse cleared the fence nicely. However, if the jump was bigger, the approach stride may have needed to be shorter to increase the stance phase and collect more energy. The fetlock angle drops as the energy is collected in the muscles and ligaments in the hind limbs as they prepare for takeoff. These horses are all jumping a 1 metre oxa, and therefore their fetlock angle upon takeoff is quite similar. The fetlock angle at takeoff of this horse jumping a Grand Prix track is much more acute than the other horses. This allows a greater gathering of energy in the tendons and ligaments prior to takeoff. The energy is released as the hooves lift off the ground. At this point, the energy turns from kinetic to potential. The shoulders are lifted and the elbows are flexed as the trapezius muscle pulls the forearms forwards and upwards in order to clear the fence. This horse has a very open knee angle at 74.4 degrees. This could relate to its shoulder and forelimb conformation. The more open the knee angle, the more likely it is that the horse will hit a rail with its forelimbs. This horse has a much more acute knee angle. This would imply that the horse has a good shoulder conformation that allows an upwards and backwards rotation of the shoulder, allowing room for the forelimbs to tuck up. This horse has a fairly open knee angle at 56.8 degrees. However, the limbs are hanging underneath the horse rather than in front. This is more likely to cause a knockdown. If the shoulder rotated further backwards, this would allow the limbs to come up in front, rather than hang underneath. This horse has a very impressive front end. The knee angle is very acute and closed. The knees are lifted in front of the horse rather than underneath. This allows a large clearance of the front end over the fence. The successful show jumping conformation involves a large upright scapula, usually around 67 to 70 degrees relative to the ground. This is usually teamed with a fairly high wither. This type of shoulder offers a greater range of motion, allowing the scapula to rotate further backwards, assisting the lifting of the forelimbs. The digital flexor muscles and tendons, teamed with the superior and inferior check ligaments, limit the dropping of the fetlock upon limb loading. When the fetlock joint undergoes the greatest drop, the suspensory ligament and superficial digital flexor tendon undergo a huge stress, much greater than the deep digital flexor tendon. The trailing forelimb undergoes up to 20% more greater stress and peak load upon landing of a fence than any of the other limbs. The greater the height of the fence, the greater the stress and peak load placed upon the trailing forelimb. This results in a more acute fetlock dropping angle. This is very apparent in these horses which are jumping a 1.60 m fence in the London Olympics in 2012. All of these horses' fetlock angle upon landing are under 100 degrees. The following horses only were jumping a 1 metre oxer, and therefore their fetlock angles were much less acute. The chestnut pony had a slightly more acute angle than the grey horse. This is because the pony required a greater energy to lift its centre of gravity over the fence. This resulted in the pony having a slightly more acute fetlock angle on landing. Although the fetlock joint dropping absorbs a lot of the energy on landing, the rest of the energy concusses upwards through the leg. A short to middle length cannon bone is desirable within a show jumper. However, it should have sufficient substance, generally around 7 inches or more, in circumference. This reduces the risk of bone, joint or muscle injury to the leg. successful show jumper teams correct conformation with a good technique. This allows the horse to clear the fence in the most economical way without excessive straining of their joints, muscles or tendons.